Arthur Daniels was a man known for his passion for nature and his love for the outdoors. In his early 70s, he had already spent decades exploring the vast wilderness of the Rockies. He was a seasoned hiker, his face weathered by years of sun and wind, and his muscles accustomed to the challenge of hiking in such rough terrains. His family often joked that he was as much a part of the mountains as the trees and rocks themselves. They never worried much when he went on a hike, after all he had done it so many times before. But this time, something was different. Arthur had been planning a solo hike through a remote section of the Rockies for weeks. It wasn't a particularly dangerous route, but it was far from the well-traveled paths. He was well prepared with his gear, food, and a compass. The trail he had chosen was known for its quiet solitude, a place where he could truly escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life and reconnect with nature. His family, especially his daughter, had heard him speak of his excitement for this trip in the days leading up to it. "Just a few days, and I'll be back with stories to tell," he had promised. Arthur's daughter, Emily, gave him a quick hug as he left that morning, her face filled with the usual concern, but knowing full well he would return safely as always. It was the last time she would see him. The first couple of days passed without issue. Arthur had kept in contact via phone the evening before his hike, just to let his daughter know he had arrived and was settling in for a peaceful night. It was always a reassuring phone call for Emily, who knew her father loved these trips but couldn't shake the worry of him being so far away. But as the days passed, Emily began to feel uneasy. She hadn't heard from her father since the day he called to say he was fine. A sense of quiet dread began to settle in her heart. Arthur was a man who prided himself on his independence, but he also knew the importance of safety when it came to these trips. If something had happened, he would have made sure to reach out for help. So why hadn't he called? After 5 days without hearing from her father, Emily contacted the local authorities. It wasn't like Arthur to simply vanish. The authorities were quick to respond, understanding the urgency of the situation. Rangers and volunteers from nearby towns quickly began preparing for a search. They reviewed his route and began their journey through the difficult terrain, following the winding paths Arthur would have taken. But despite their efforts, they came up with nothing. The first few days of the search were filled with hope. The volunteers scoured the land looking for any sign of Arthur, a piece of clothing, a trail he might have left behind, anything that might tell them where he had gone. But the Rockies are vast, and the terrain unforgiving. The further the search parties ventured into the wilderness, the more isolated they became. The search soon became a race against time. The longer Arthur went without contact, the more likely it seemed that something had gone wrong. As the days passed, the search grew more intense. Teams of rangers, volunteers, and even helicopters combed through the area, hoping for some sign of Arthur. But there was no sign. No footprints, no broken branches, no items left behind. It was as if he had simply vanished into the mountains, leaving no trace of his presence. Emily was beside herself with worry. She couldn't understand it. Arthur had hiked these mountains for years, always coming back with stories of his adventures. He had been well prepared for any situation. She kept replaying the last conversation they had. He had sounded fine, excited even. But something didn't add up. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As the days turned into weeks, the search was officially called off. The authorities had done everything they could, but the mountains were too vast and the terrain too rugged. Arthur Daniels was now just another missing person, his name added to the long list of those who had disappeared without a trace. Emily was devastated, but she knew the truth, even if she didn't want to accept it. Her father was gone, and they would never know what had happened to him. Time passed, and life slowly returned to normal. Emily continued to grieve for her father, but she knew there was no point in dwelling on the past. She tried to move on, holding on to the memories of their times together. She would visit his favorite hiking spots in the Rockies when she could, hoping that somehow she might feel closer to him. But every visit brought more questions and more pain. The family tried their best to cope. They held a small ceremony, for Arthur, where friends and family shared stories of his life. They spoke of his love for nature, his adventures, and his gentle, caring spirit. He had been a kind man, always willing to help anyone in need, and his sudden disappearance left a void that couldn't be filled. Years went by, and the pain of losing Arthur began to fade, but the unanswered questions still lingered. What had happened to him? Had he gotten lost? Had he met with an accident? Or had something else happened? Something that no one could have ever imagined? These were the questions that Emily and the rest of the family were left to grapple with. The mystery of Arthur's disappearance remained unsolved. But as the years went on, something unexpected happened. A group of rangers deep in the forest on a routine patrol made a discovery that would shake the family to its core. 2 years after Arthur's disappearance, they found something hidden in the dense woods, a structure that looked out of place, something that didn't belong in the natural landscape. At first they thought it was just a forgotten camp or a trail marker, but as they got closer they realized it was something more, something dangerous. What they had found was a booby trap, carefully crafted and strategically placed in the heart of the forest, far from any known trail. The trap was designed to ensnare anyone who ventured too close, to warn them off. The rangers were puzzled. Who would go to such lengths to create a trap in such a remote location? And why? This discovery would soon lead them to answers no one was prepared for. Answers that would finally reveal the truth behind Arthur Daniels' disappearance. But those answers were still a long way off. The mystery of what happened to Arthur Daniels had only deepened with time, and the discovery of the booby trap would change everything they thought they knew about his final days. 2 years had passed since Arthur Daniels vanished into the vast wilderness of the Rockies, and though the pain had started to fade for his family, the unanswered questions still loomed large. His daughter, Emily, had tried to move forward, but the uncertainty of his disappearance lingered in her heart. It was as though the mountains had swallowed him whole, leaving no trace behind. Despite all the time that had passed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Was her father truly lost, or had something more sinister happened to him? The official search had been called off, with no new leads, and Arthur's disappearance was officially classified as a cold case. Emily, trying to keep her father's memory alive, often visited the places he had loved. It wasn't easy for her to let go, but life had moved on, even if the mystery hadn't. As she visited the Rockies on her own, she tried to understand the beauty of the place that had captivated her father. She'd walk along the same paths he had taken and wonder where things had gone wrong. Arthur's family had accepted that they might never find out what truly happened, and they focused on cherishing the time they had with him before he disappeared. But deep down, Emily couldn't let go of the nagging thought that there was more to the story, something the authorities might have missed. Her father was a skilled hiker. If something had happened to him, why had he left no sign behind? She kept hearing her father's voice, encouraging her to never give up and always keep looking for answers. Emily's quiet obsession with the case didn't go unnoticed. She kept in touch with the authorities, checking in periodically to see if anything new had surfaced. Most of the time there was nothing to report, and the rangers would simply tell her that the case had grown cold, that they had searched every inch of the area, and there was no sign of Arthur. It wasn't until 2 years after his disappearance that something changed. A routine search in a remote section of the forest brought a startling discovery. A team of rangers, who were investigating a part of the forest where few people ever went, stumbled upon something strange. At first they thought it was just another abandoned campsite or perhaps a remnant of someone else's forgotten hike. But as they ventured closer, they realized it was something far more disturbing. They found a booby trap. Hidden deep within the forest, tucked under the thick canopy of trees, was a cleverly constructed device designed to snare and trap anyone who might wander too close. It wasn't the kind of trap hikers usually set up for animals. It was meant for people. It was a trap that could cause serious injury or even death if someone weren't careful. The rangers had to take a step back and reassess their findings. Why was this trap here, so deep in the forest, far from any known trails? Who had placed it and why? The rangers, who were experienced in the mountains and had seen many strange things in their time, couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The booby trap wasn't a random setup. It was intentional, carefully designed, and placed with a clear purpose in mind. They inspected the area around the trap, looking for any signs of life or any hint of who might have set it. They found a few small clues, traces of footprints, a few pieces of discarded equipment, and even a torn map that seemed to mark a specific location in the forest. At first, the rangers didn't connect the dots between the trap and Arthur's disappearance, but as they continued their investigation, they began to wonder if it might be related. Could Arthur have wandered into this part of the forest and accidentally triggered the trap? Was this the reason he hadn't returned? Had someone been watching him? Or was he simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? The rangers couldn't answer these questions yet, but the discovery of the booby trap opened up a new line of investigation that hadn't been considered before. Emily, when she heard the news, felt a cold shiver run down her spine. It was as if her gut had been right all along. Something had happened to her father that wasn't just a simple accident. The idea of a booby trap being set in the same area where Arthur had gone missing felt eerie and unnatural. Could her father have stumbled upon something dangerous in that forest? Had he been caught in something far bigger than a simple hiking accident? Emily couldn't ignore the connection any longer. She felt compelled to take action, to learn more about the discovery and what it meant for her father's case. She reached out to the authorities again, this time with renewed urgency. She couldn't rest until she knew the truth about what had happened to her father. The rangers shared the details of their findings with her, explaining that the trap had been carefully placed, but they were still unsure who had set it or why. They speculated that it could have been placed by someone trying to keep people away from a certain part of the forest. But what was so important about this area? And why hadn't they found anything like this during the original search? As the rangers continued to examine the trap and the area around it, they found more signs that suggested this wasn't an isolated incident. They uncovered evidence of a hidden pathway, one that led deep into the forest. It was a path that didn't appear on any maps, a route that seemed deliberately concealed. Could it be that Arthur had unknowingly wandered down this hidden path? Had he discovered something secret, something that someone wanted to keep hidden from the world? Emily felt a deep sense of dread as the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place. Her father, an experienced hiker, had always been cautious. He would never have wandered off the main trail without a good reason. And if he had, he would have left signs of his passage, footprints, marks on trees, something. But there was nothing. The fact that the authorities hadn't found any trace of him led Emily to believe that something more than an accident had happened. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could it have been an accident, a slip that sent him off the path and into the trap? Or could it be that her father had unknowingly walked into a trap set by someone with ill intentions? The booby trap wasn't the only clue that made Emily think her father's disappearance wasn't an accident. It was the fact that the trap had been placed so deliberately, deep in the forest in a place few people ever went. The discovery of the trap also raised another important question. Why had it been there for so long without anyone noticing? The rangers were baffled by the timing of the trap's placement, as it seemed to have been set up just before Arthur's disappearance. Could this have been a warning to someone? Or was it an attempt to keep people away from something important? Emily couldn't help but feel that the answers to these questions might be the key to unlocking the mystery of her father's fate. With new determination, Emily decided to dig deeper into the history of the area where Arthur had disappeared. She knew that to understand what had happened to her father, she needed to uncover the secrets that the forest had been hiding. And so, with the help of the rangers, she began to explore the mysterious parts of the Rockies where no one had dared to go. Little did she know, this journey would lead her down a path that would unravel truths more shocking than she ever imagined. The discovery of the booby trap sent a shockwave through Emily's mind. The thought that her father might have wandered into a dangerous, hidden part of the forest, and that the trap could have been meant for him, plagued her thoughts. As the rangers continued to examine the area, Emily couldn't help but feel a strange sense of urgency. She needed to know more. Her father's disappearance couldn't just be another unsolved mystery. She had to find out the truth, no matter how disturbing it might be. The Rangers were puzzled by the trap. They had found more of the hidden pathway, which led deep into the heart of the forest, far from the usual trails. It was a place no one had mapped or ventured to before. They speculated that whoever had set the trap might have wanted to keep people away from this area for a reason. But what reason could that be? What could be so important that someone would go to such lengths to keep it hidden? Emily's determination grew stronger with each new clue. She contacted the authorities again, requesting more details about the trap and the hidden path. She asked them to take a closer look at the area around the trap, hoping to find something, anything, that could shed light on what had happened to her father. She didn't care how long it took. She was determined to find the truth. The Rangers agreed to search further, and over the next few days they uncovered more unsettling evidence. They found small remnants of what appeared to be an abandoned camp, broken pieces of equipment, a weathered backpack, and a few empty cans. The most troubling discovery, however, was a worn map that seemed to have been hastily discarded. It was unclear who it belonged to, but it seemed to lead to the very area where the booby trap had been set up. Emily's heart raced as she looked over the map, her mind running through possibilities. Could her father have had the map? Was it possible that Arthur had stumbled upon a hidden location that someone wanted to keep secret? The map appeared old, and it had markings that seemed deliberate, pointing to specific areas in the forest. It wasn't the type of map that hikers would use. This was something different. Emily could feel that something important was hidden in this place, something that Arthur might have discovered without realizing the danger. She met with the Rangers and looked over the map again, her fingers tracing the lines. The markings were subtle but clear enough to suggest that whoever had made the map wanted to keep it a secret. Emily couldn't help but feel a rising sense of dread. It felt like the more she uncovered, the more she realized just how little she knew about the circumstances surrounding her father's disappearance. After several more days of searching, the Rangers found something else, something that made Emily's blood run cold. They found a small, weathered object buried deep in the underbrush near the booby trap. At first it seemed insignificant, just a piece of debris that could have been discarded. But upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a button from a jacket that looked very much like the one Arthur had worn on his hike. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Could this be a sign that her father had been close to the trap, or even had been caught in it? The Rangers didn't have an immediate explanation, but they sent the button for analysis, hoping to find some trace evidence. As they waited for the results, the search continued. The more they explored, the more they began to piece together a chilling picture. The hidden path that led to the booby trap wasn't just a random trail. It seemed as though it had been deliberately concealed, a place no one would find unless they knew exactly where to look. It was as if the forest had been hiding something, or someone. The Rangers began to suspect that this wasn't just an accident. Someone had placed the trap, and whoever it was, they had a reason for wanting to keep people away. Emily felt a growing sense of unease as the search continued. The forest, which had once been a place of beauty and peace for her father, now felt like a maze of hidden dangers and secrets. She couldn't shake the feeling that her father's disappearance was part of something much bigger than she had initially imagined. Arthur hadn't just gotten lost. He had walked into a carefully orchestrated situation, one that involved hidden paths, secret maps, and perhaps people who wanted to keep something hidden in the deep wilderness. After weeks of investigation, the authorities were able to confirm that the button did indeed belong to Arthur. It was a small piece of evidence, but it was enough to make Emily's heart race with new hope. Her father had been close to this hidden part of the forest. He had been in this area, perhaps only moments before the trap had been set. Emily's thoughts turned to the possibility that her father might have stumbled into something he wasn't meant to see. With the discovery of the button, the authorities began to focus more closely on the hidden path and the strange markings on the map. They started to question whether there was something more sinister at play in the area. Could Arthur have unknowingly come across a place where illegal activities were happening? The idea seemed far-fetched at first, but the more they thought about it, the more it made sense. If someone had wanted to keep people away from this part of the forest, they would go to great lengths to ensure that no one got too close. The booby trap, the hidden path, the map, everything pointed to something being deliberately concealed. As Emily dug deeper into the case, she started reaching out to anyone who might know something about the hidden areas of the Rockies. She spoke to local experts, old hikers who had been in the area for years, even some of the rangers who had patrolled the forest long before her father's disappearance. One of them, an older man named Jack, told her that there had been rumors for years about strange activities in the more remote parts of the Rockies. People had whispered about illegal hunting, secret camps, and even hidden stash houses, but no one had ever been able to prove anything. The forest, after all, was vast and treacherous. It was the perfect place for someone to hide something. Jack's words weighed heavily on Emily's mind. Could her father have accidentally stumbled upon something like that? Had he walked into a place where he shouldn't have been? She thought back to all the times Arthur had hiked the Rockies and how he'd always loved exploring the most remote, untouched parts of nature. Had he found something hidden, something that had been meant to stay that way? As Emily stood at the edge of the forest looking out over the vast expanse, she knew that the truth was closer than ever. But the more she uncovered, the more she realized just how dangerous the journey to uncover it would be. Her father had ventured into the unknown, and now she was doing the same. But what she didn't know yet was that the truth about Arthur's disappearance was more shocking than anything she could have ever imagined. The hidden path, the booby trap, the strange markings. It was all part of a much larger mystery that had yet to be fully revealed. Emily stood in the same dense forest where her father had vanished, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. The more she learned, the more her mind raced with possibilities. What was Arthur really up to before he disappeared? Could he have been in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or had he uncovered something far more dangerous, something that someone didn't want anyone to know? Each new clue seemed to point further down a path she had never imagined, and yet she knew that it was the only path that could lead to the truth. After weeks of investigation, Emily had uncovered a few more pieces of the puzzle. The booby trap, the secret map, and the hidden pathway were more than just random elements of a mystery. They seemed to fit together like the pieces of a larger, darker picture. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that her father had stumbled upon something in the forest that had been deliberately hidden, something that people had gone to great lengths to keep away from prying eyes. The rangers continued to help her, offering their expertise and support. But despite all their efforts, they were still left with so many unanswered questions. They had sent the button found near the trap for analysis, but so far it had yielded nothing more than confirmation that it belonged to Arthur. It was a small clue, but it meant that her father had indeed been close to the trap, maybe even caught in it. That alone made Emily's heart ache, but it also ignited a renewed sense of urgency. Her father hadn't just vanished. He had encountered something or someone that had altered the course of his life forever. One evening, Emily was sitting alone at home going over the notes and maps she had compiled when her phone rang. It was a call from Jack, the ranger who had shared his knowledge of the hidden paths in the Rockies. He had some information that might just be the key to unlocking the mystery of what happened to Arthur. Emily, I've been thinking a lot about your father's case. Jack's voice came through, calm but serious. I've been talking to some of the old-timers who've been around here longer than I have. I think I might know where your father was heading. Emily sat up straight, her breath catching in her throat. What do you mean, Jack? You know where he was going? Not exactly, Jack replied. But I know the area he was heading towards. It's a place deep in the forest. I've heard rumors about it for years, but no one really talks about it. It's a part of the Rockies that few know about and fewer still dare to venture into. Emily's heart raced. What kind of rumors? Let's just say that people who go in there don't always come back, Jack said, his voice lowering. Some say it's because of the terrain. Others think there's something more to it, something people want to keep hidden. But whatever it is, Arthur may have found it. I think he was heading straight toward it, and that might explain the trap. Emily was speechless for a moment. The idea that her father had unknowingly walked into a dangerous place, one that even the rangers avoided, sent chills down her spine. What had Arthur found? And why had no one been able to stop him from walking right into it? Jack's voice broke through her thoughts. I know it's a lot to take in, Emily, but I think it's worth checking out. We might be able to find something there that could give us a better idea of what happened. Without hesitation, Emily agreed. I'll meet you there tomorrow. The next day, they met at the edge of the forest, where the trees grew thick and the air was heavy with the scent of pine. Jack led the way, his seasoned knowledge of the mountains evident in the way he navigated the dense underbrush. Emily followed closely behind, trying to steady her nerves. She was determined to find answers, but every step into the forest made her feel like she was walking deeper into a mystery she wasn't ready to fully understand. As they walked deeper into the forest, Emily noticed the silence. It was as if the usual sounds of wildlife, chirping birds, rustling leaves, the distant calls of animals, had vanished. The air grew thick with tension, and Emily couldn't help but feel like they were being watched. She shook off the feeling, attributing it to nerves. After all, this was the place where her father had disappeared. It was natural to feel uneasy. Jack led them off the main trail, and soon they were following a narrow path that was barely visible beneath the thick vegetation. The further they went, the more the forest seemed to close in around them. It was as if the trees themselves were hiding something, concealing the secrets of the place from the world. Emily's heart pounded as she looked around, wondering what she might find. Eventually, they came to a clearing, a small, almost forgotten patch of land surrounded by towering trees. It was an eerie, unsettling place. The ground was littered with rocks and debris, and the air felt unnaturally still. There was something about the clearing that felt wrong, like it didn't belong in the natural landscape of the Rockies. It was as if it had been carved out deliberately, hidden away from the world. Jack pointed to a cluster of trees at the edge of the clearing. This is where I think your father was heading. This is the area he was most likely trying to reach. Emily stepped forward, her mind racing. She felt a sense of dread wash over her as she took in the strange scene before her. The clearing seemed to hold a dark, almost ominous energy, and she couldn't help but wonder what her father had been looking for when he came here. What had he uncovered? What had he found that had led him into danger? As they continued to explore the clearing, Emily's eyes fell on something unusual. A small, weathered box buried beneath a pile of leaves and dirt. She bent down, her heart racing as she unearthed the box. It was old, its surface worn and scratched, but it seemed strangely familiar. She could feel the weight of it in her hands as she opened it carefully. Inside, she found a collection of old papers, maps, notes, and what appeared to be a journal. Jack glanced at the papers, his face growing serious. This might be it, Emily. This could be what your father was looking for. The journal was filled with cryptic notes, and the map seemed to correspond with the markings they had found earlier. The deeper Emily read, the more she realized that her father had stumbled upon something dangerous, something that had been hidden in the forest for years. The journal hinted at secret meetings, hidden locations, and people who had gone to great lengths to keep their activities concealed. Arthur had unknowingly walked into the heart of it all. As Emily read the final entry in the journal, her breath caught in her throat. It was a warning, a message left by someone who had come before her father, someone who had tried to leave behind a clue. The entry spoke of a group that had been operating in the shadows, their actions hidden from the world. Arthur had found them, and they had made sure he wouldn't leave with the truth. Emily's mind raced as the realization hit her. Her father hadn't just gotten lost. He had uncovered something that had made him a target. And now she was closer than ever to discovering what had really happened to him. The forest, it seemed, held more than just the memories of lost hikers. It held the secrets of a hidden world, one that her father had unknowingly stepped into. And now, it was up to Emily to unravel it. Emily sat in the small, dimly lit cabin, the journal spread out in front of her. The discovery of the hidden box, The maps and the cryptic notes had turned the mystery of her father's disappearance into something far more complex than she had ever imagined. The journal was like a key that unlocked a door to a secret world, one her father had unknowingly stepped into when he set off on his final hike. The deeper she read, the more she realized how dangerous it had been for Arthur to have uncovered what was hidden in the Rockies. The last few pages of the journal contained a chilling entry, one that seemed to suggest that the group her father had stumbled upon had been involved in something far more sinister than just hiding away in the forest. The notes spoke of secret meetings and hidden activities, but most troubling of all was the final entry, which mentioned how the group had dealt with unwanted guests. It was clear now that Arthur had not simply gotten lost. He had discovered something he was never meant to find. Emily closed the journal and leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She thought about the booby trap they had found and the hidden path that led into the heart of the forest. All the pieces were starting to fall into place. Arthur had unknowingly walked into a place where secrets were buried deep, and once he had uncovered those secrets, someone or something had made sure he wouldn't leave. The question that burned in her mind now was simple. Who was behind it all? The Rangers had been helpful, but Emily knew that they couldn't solve this alone. She needed to go further, to dig deeper into the mystery her father had uncovered. The forest had been hiding something, and now she was determined to find out what that was. She felt a mixture of dread and resolve wash over her. Whatever had happened to Arthur, she had to uncover it. She couldn't leave his memory to be swallowed by the silence of the mountains. The following day, Emily met with Jack again, and together, they carefully examined the journal and the maps. Jack had been with her during every step of the investigation, offering his knowledge of the area and his expertise. He had lived in the Rockies for most of his life, and he knew the land better than anyone. Emily trusted him, and she hoped that together they could unravel the final pieces of the mystery. This journal, it mentions something about a hidden location, Emily said, flipping through the pages. It doesn't make sense. It says here that it's somewhere close by, just off the main trails, but it's never been mapped. Jack leaned over her shoulder, examining the notes carefully. I've heard of places like this, Emily. Places that don't show up on maps. People who want to stay hidden, they make sure that no one finds their way there. But you're right, this is different. The way your father was describing it, this group had a hold on this area. Maybe they've been here for a long time. Emily nodded. I think he stumbled upon them, and they didn't want him to leave. They must have thought he knew too much. What could they have been hiding out here? The idea of a hidden group in the forest was unnerving. Emily had lived most of her life with the comforting thought that nature was a place of peace and solace. But now it seemed the Rockies were holding a darker secret, a secret that her father had uncovered with his love for the mountains, and now it was a secret she had to expose. Jack looked out of the cabin window, his face grim. I've heard rumors of things going on up in those hills, but it's never been clear. People come and go, but no one knows who they are. No one dares ask too many questions. If your father had gotten too close, they might have thought he was a threat. Emily felt the weight of Jack's words settle on her chest. Her father had been a threat, but only because he had uncovered something that wasn't meant to be found. He had been too close to something that could ruin everything the group had been hiding. I have to go back, Emily said suddenly. I have to find where he went. I know he was heading towards something, and I know I'm close. Jack frowned. Emily, it's dangerous. We've gone as far as we can. You've seen the trap. You've seen the hidden path. This place, it's not like the rest of the forest. There are things here, things that are better left alone. But Emily wasn't ready to give up. She knew her father had been close to the truth. And whatever it was, whatever he had found, she couldn't leave it buried. Not after everything she had learned. She needed to understand it all. I can't just walk away, Jack, Emily said firmly. I need to know what happened to him. I need to find the answers. Jack looked at her for a long moment, and then with a heavy sigh he nodded. All right, but we'll go together. I won't let you do this alone. Together they set out the next morning, retracing the path Arthur had taken. Jack led the way and Emily followed closely behind. Her mind focused on the journal, the map, and the mysterious path that seemed to beckon her into the unknown. The further they walked, the more Emily could feel the forest close in around them. It was as if the land itself was watching, waiting. They walked for hours, navigating the thick underbrush, carefully avoiding the places where the forest seemed to be hiding its secrets. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to change. It was colder here, the trees taller, their twisted branches reaching out like fingers. The forest felt ancient, as if it held memories too dark to be remembered. Finally, they reached the edge of the clearing, the one Emily had seen in her father's journal, the place where everything had come together. The clearing seemed to pulse with an energy that both unsettled and intrigued Emily. She felt that she was standing on the edge of something she wasn't meant to see, but she had to know. Her father had been here. She was sure of it. The trees around the clearing were dense, their trunks thick and twisted. Jack pointed to a small hill in the distance. "That's where your father was heading, that's the spot." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the weight of history, of the unknown, pressing in on her. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. They climbed the hill carefully, each step taking them closer to the hidden truth. At the top, Emily gasped. There, half buried, under the rocks was a small weathered chest. It was old, almost ancient in its appearance, and it seemed out of place in the natural surroundings. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had found what her father had discovered. With shaking hands, Emily opened the chest. Inside, she found more documents, more maps, and a small, old photograph. The photograph showed a group of people she didn't recognize, standing together in front of a building. In the background was a symbol, one that seemed oddly familiar, as if she had seen it before. As Emily examined the photograph, she felt a rush of understanding. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. The group her father had uncovered was more than just a secret hideaway in the forest. It was part of something much larger, something that had been hidden from the world for years. With the chest in her hands, Emily turned to Jack, her face filled with determination. "We're not finished yet. I need to know everything. I will uncover the truth. I owe it to my father." And with that, Emily knew that her journey was just beginning. The Rockies were hiding something far greater than she had ever imagined, and now it was up to her to expose it to the world. She couldn't stop until she had the answers that would finally bring peace to her father's memory and uncover the dark secrets that had remained hidden in the forest for so long.